So I'm going to do a demo on landscape because that's what I like to paint. And first I want to say I've taken a lot of workshops starting in the early 80s, week-long workshops, totally immersed myself in the landscape and the studio for 24 hours if I wanted to. I would work from 8 in the morning till 10 at night. That was in the 80s when I had more energy. Now I take 5-day workshops with various people, sometimes 3-day workshops, but I pick and choose now because I know my style and I know what I want to get from the instructor. And I highly encourage people to take workshops because even if you've heard it all before, there's always something new that you'll get in a different way. You may have heard it before, but it doesn't sink in. So I believe that we want to learn the stuff and then be able to paint intuitively rather than needing to think, okay, I know this value, area perspective, it gets lighter when it goes into the distance. We want to just intuitively be able to produce that on our painting rather than have to think about that stuff. So the more you hear it and the more you practice it, the more intuitive your painting becomes rather than needing to be labored thinking. And as my own personal example of results of workshops, this is a plein air piece that is the glare on.
It's better when you hold it like that.
I did in Moab area of Utah. I did this plein air about 3, possibly 4 years ago. And then in that intervening time, I took a few workshops and I did this studio piece as a demo for the Tucson Pastel Society. And it happened to be 3/4 of a year after I had taken a workshop on color in Denver with Ken Elliott and Casey Klom. And basically it's still my style, but I had introduced little hints of color here that I didn't do before. So sometimes the gains are small, sometimes they're big leaps ahead when you take workshops. And sometimes I like to paint it all and I don't know which one to do first, so I hemmed and hawed about what I should do for the demo. I had a request for a cloudscape, so what I did is start to prepare 2, and you can choose which one I do. In this one, this is a photograph from Ghost Ranch. Here is the photograph. Then I cropped it because I like squares. And the concept is very important. If you don't know why you're doing the painting, there's really no reason to do it. We don't want to just copy a photograph. The photograph's already done. So we need to be creative and put our spirit into it and have a reason that we're making it into a painting. What attracted me about this was the shadow and the light on the chemise. This little line shape here with the shadow and light is what most attracted me. And then also how it is dark background against the light of the chemise. So that's basically my concept, this area and this light. I also like shadows going across a road. If I were to do this one, I would use UART 400, which is my preferred. Sometimes I use 320 UART, but generally speaking 400. And I would do it direct painting, no underpainting. A quick sketch on it, and then I would just proceed from there. So that is one choice. The other choice is a cloudscape. This is on a road I found this past fall in Abiquiu. It's a little side road. If you aren't looking for it, you don't even notice it's there. And the storm was coming in, and what I liked about this was the abstract shapes, the negative space and the abstract shapes of the cloud, and then the road coming in. When I do cloudscapes, I usually tone my paper red and go from there. So, Which do you prefer?
Cloudscapes.
I guess I don't have to show the photograph.
The red's a mystery.
The red's a mystery. Well, I love using red toned paper for cloudscapes.
Is that toned with pastel?
It's toned with, let me just put this on and then I'll, sort of like, definitely right-brained, I can't think and talk and do things at the same time. It's toned with pastel. It was a Mount Vision pastel that I toned with just kind of a grid. I didn't fill it all in with pastel. And then I used alcohol, rubbing alcohol. Sometimes I use pastel and water. Years and years ago, I used pastel and terpenoid. But pastel and water's very readily available, so it's not another thing I have to pack it with me. Sometimes I've used pastel and Spectrafix, and I put the Spectrafix into a little cup and then brush it on. Oops, upside down. I wouldn't have known the difference if I hadn't done the sketch first.
Could have made it reflections in the water.
Oh, and you'll have to excuse me, I don't know what has been going on, but my nose has been running constantly for the past couple of days. So this isn't on camera, is it?
Unfortunately.
And generally speaking, I hold my reference photo, but I will do it this way, at least for part of it.
So you did the sketch after you put the color?
After I toned it, I did the sketch, yes. And it's very hard to see what it is. I used a Derwent pastel pencil. It's green umber 78B. It's kind of neutral. It's hard to see, but I just need a few guidelines. I don't want a detailed drawing on this. Some artists do, and there's no right or wrong to this. It's just personal preference. As with a lot of our painting techniques, it's not right or wrong, it's personal preference. So the fact that I use red under my clouds doesn't mean that people should always use red under their cloud paintings. They could do it with just the plain paper, or they could use a different color to tone the paper. And in the beginning, this is going to be challenging because my eye is always going to be seeing the red and simultaneous contrast. Thing is what it is because of what it's next to. So any color I put next to here, it's going to look different the more color that I put on here. So I wanted to quickly get some of the paper covered instead of just working in one area at a time, so that I'm not always distracted by the red. I like what the red does, but in the very beginning it can be very distracting. And I try to paint quickly. I've seen some people grow very, very, I just, it's like, come on, come on, come on. But again, that's personal preference. This is my plein air setup, and this is a very now old box and tripod, and it wiggles. So I've just gotten into the habit of holding it in place. I was going to gift myself with a new plein air box for Christmas, but instead I bought myself a new iPad. So I'm starting basically with what I'm considering to be the negative image, negative shapes.
pastels, what colors you're choosing? Was that an ultramarine blue and then, or, you know?
Basically, and it was a Terry Ludwig. The one in my hand now, I believe, is part of a Diane Townsend Terra Jess. I always thought it was Terra J until I heard at IAPS one time that it's Terra meaning land and Jess for gesture. It's got pumice grit in it, and I really like her pastels for cloud paintings.
So is that like an off-white?
This one, I believe, is the very palest Mars yellow. But one thing about Diane Townsend pastels, I love them, but I try to buy several of one color at a time because she's not consistent. And she's a small company, and she's fine with that. I bought Mars yellow, and it was almost white, and then I bought it again, and it was very pale yellow. Pale, but very yellow. And another time I bought, I was intending to buy this color. I don't know if you can see that, but it's, maybe you can see it's lighter. That, oops. Sometimes my touch in my hand is so light that it drops. Let me just wipe this up quickly. But no problem, because I like to use small.
All chips.
So anyway, I ordered the number for this pastel, and I got this one. This is a very dark brown. This is a paler brown gray. I was shocked. And the same thing happened with purple. I wanted pale, and I got medium. Same number of the pastel. So you have to be careful with that. But in spite of that, I love her pastels, and I continue to use them. And already I think I goofed up here. The wrong negative space. But one of the things I like about pastel is you can work right over your mistakes. And you can ask questions as I'm working, but I will say I find it a little distracting if there's lots of conversations behind me, because then I wonder, well, what are they saying? Are they liking what I'm doing? Are they not liking what I'm doing?
So if we're gonna talk about you, we should be loud.
Yes. Yes.
After all the accolades, I think they like what you're doing.
I haven't done enough yet to have this is just the beginning. And I prefer pastel for plein air work. I do oil in the studio, and the reason for that is pastel is so quick and immediate, and using oil plein air, I have to mix the colors, and then there's the glare, and I find myself going like this to see the real color. So I'm just much quicker with pastel in plein air.
It's good if you're clean.
Oops, wrong color. And another thing, wrong color. Simultaneous contrast thing, what I see here may look right. What I see when I put it up here may look totally wrong. So instead of just going on, it's best to just make a small mark so that if it's the wrong one, you don't have too much to undo.
that you're doing a square painting, do you follow the golden sections, was it called, with the squares, because it's, you
Only,
know what I'm talking about?
yeah, I have a book, I can't remember the title, Geometry of Art, and it's all about the Fibonacci numbers and the golden mean and
Golden means, yeah.
how different artists over the centuries have used it. I just keep that in mind loosely. I don't plot it out. But I do mark the center, and I mark the center of the quadrants, and generally speaking, am aware of the thirds, the rule of thirds. Now, companies change things, and they're never the same. I had a great backpack, and it started falling apart, holes in it. So I went to REI to get a new one, and they changed, I guess, the proportion because it didn't fit me anymore, and they also changed the design. It didn't have the same pockets. So I had to get a new one, and it doesn't have all the pockets, so I had to buy this extra little thing to put in there. So these are styrofoam pieces that came from electronic packaging. Some places are now using recycled cardboard, so I don't know what I'm going to do when I run out of my supply of these. But I use these and my fingers to blend.
Are those the same as the styrofoam peanuts?
No, they are not. These are more compacted. They're little tiny, tiny circles pressed in together.
You have to buy an iPad to get those, don't you?
Yeah, my iPad didn't come with them. But the last studio heater I bought did, so I'm saving some of them. And I have a jar filled with them, so I think I'm pretty good for a while. And when I do the direct painting, I don't use these, except for maybe to fill in a little area that didn't get covered. You know, like right here, I might use it to do that kind of thing, but generally speaking, I don't use the blending tool, except for when I'm doing cloud paintings. And one of the things I like about the red is that it will show through and add warmth. I think I'll use my finger. I feel like this is a quick draw. I gotta watch the time.
Lee, do you work exclusively in pastel?
No, I use oil in the studio. I rent an oil studio at the artist studio where we're having this open studio day in February 22nd. And then pastel is in my home, or plein air. And I think plein air painting is very, very important. When I lived back east, for one thing, where I was, there weren't many landscape plein air painters. And I don't like to go out by myself. I just don't think it's safe. One time I was painting at Elena Gallegos, which I think basically is safe. I'm painting away and I stepped back and I just sensed something behind me. I turned around, there was somebody standing there. I have no idea how long he was there. I said hello, he just stared at me. And so even in safe areas, I just don't like to go out by myself because you just never know. And I'm not the type to carry a gun.
Not even pepper spray.
But what my point was going to be is when I moved out here where there are far, far fewer bugs, far, far more days of sunshine, less rain, less humidity, and I could paint outside more, I was really kind of impressed and amazed with how quickly my work started to leap forward. Being able to paint outside only a few times in the summer back east wasn't enough. And it really does improve my studio work as well and how I can interpret a photograph. The photograph is so far off from what you see in actuality, but when you have enough plein air experience, you then can understand those changes much, much better. You know, all these pastels, and then they've got the mini box, and there's always seems like there's never enough. The more, Richard McKinley says, the one with the most pastel when he dies wins. And that just reminded me, in Gene White's death and donating all the paintings, if you paint a lot and then you have your demise, who's going to do what with all those paintings? You can donate some of them, but if you're working a lot, can you donate everything? Can you sell everything? And then it's going to be up to the person left behind to say, what do I do with this? So it started me thinking that maybe I should make a plan before it happens, because I can't plan afterwards. Okay, right now this is not looking like enough. And the quality of your materials when you're working is extremely important. If I can say something uncensored here, when I took Wolf Kahn's workshop many years ago, it was when I was first starting out, and it was my first big workshop. And I, at the time, was using elementary school grade pastellos, and I was using pastel pencils in regular Aquabee paper. I didn't know any better, and where I was living, there weren't big art stores, and I was having trouble getting the colors I wanted. I was doing pines in Vermont, and I had to put black underneath, which now, to me, makes things very heavy. But that was my only choice, because little sets, it was vivid green and black. There was nothing really in between. So Wolf Kahn comes up to me and I said, I'm having trouble getting the colors I want for the pines. And he looks at my little array of pastels and said, I can't help you if your materials are
Ooh.
and moved on. So that Christmas I bought a set of Sennelier, which at the time in the 80s, no, yeah, this was early 90s, 92, was really all that was available. And what a difference. And then I moved up with paper too. My next one was Canson, and then I went up to Lacarte and Wallace, and now UART. So materials do make a difference. And you might think, well, I'm just a beginner and I don't want to just waste the materials. but you're really handicapping yourself if you don't start with good materials. And you don't have to have the big expense all at once. You can buy a pastel or two at a week, and then it's not too hard on the pocketbook. But it will make a huge difference in your work.
Lee, do you ever make your own pastel?
No, I tried it once and I thought it was messy, and it's so much easier to just buy. And I thought, since I didn't enjoy it, why take the time and effort?
Kind of like cooking.
Yeah. Well, I don't cook very often either.
Do you ever use homemade surfaces?
No, I tried that once too. And to me, it's not worth the effort because I like the results I get with these. There's nothing, the people who use them, beautiful work. I'm so uncomfortable with it. And again, there's no right or wrong, it's personal preference. I'm warming up the foreground so that it comes forward and looks closer.
Lee, who do you think was your most influential teacher?
Richard McKinley. Richard McKinley. Before I met him, I had taken lots. Wilf Kahn, Albert Handel, Diane Townsend, a few others that are more known in the East Coast. And when I started with Richard, which was when he was our judge for the national show in 2004, I took his 3-day workshop. And all of that stuff that other teachers were talking about, but not really explaining, started to, oh, now I understand. So he's very articulate, and his manner of presenting the points is it's very entertaining. And I just really learned a lot. And so now I consider him to be my mentor, and I coordinate workshops for him when he comes to New Mexico. And they're so popular that this last one, this past fall, at Albuquerque, filled up in a day and a half. Let me step back. When I'm not doing a demo, when I'm painting for myself, I step back a lot. Like a couple of strokes, step back, a couple of strokes, step back. And I think that it was either Robert Henry or John Singer Sargent, who had his classes, have the model in one room and their easel in the other. And they had to look, and then go to the other room to make their marks and go and look. Not being right on top of your work all the time is very good. It's very helpful.
You've made the sky part a couple of values lighter than what's in the photo.
Yeah, this is all not true for what I actually saw. This is photograph and averaging. This is all darker than it really was. Plus, I didn't want this to look too heavy, so I did put some sky holes in there. And I'm not finding the color that I want. It's I hope this looks better from a distance than it does from the view I have of it.
It's nice seeing both views.
It's looking really good.
Oh, thank you. Maybe I should step back out there to look at it. Because what I'm seeing is, oh, I have so much more to do. I have so much more to do.
You don't have a lot of time to do it.
I know. I don't think every painting that we start necessarily needs to be finished, because sometimes we've made mistakes, and it's best to just start again. And another Robert Henry thing was 100 starts that are really good are better than one finished painting that has problems. So if I don't think this has problems, then I will finish it. Or if I think the problems are easily resolvable. Now sometimes we shouldn't be quitters, but do we really need to bang our heads against the wall and struggle, struggle, struggle instead of starting new and correcting those problems instead of trying to undo a lot of stuff?
If you could sum up how you do clouds in a few statements, what would you say?
Go for the energy, go for the impulse that first attracted you, and keep that in mind. And then, depending on what kind of a cloudscape it is, you have to think about the aero perspective of clouds versus ground, which is basically reversed. As far as ground, cooler and grayer the further away it is, but with clouds it's warmer the further away it is, especially at the horizon. So you have to keep that in mind, and that's more noticeable in some kinds of cloudscapes over others. But I'd say, number one, keep in mind what attracted you to the scene, and get that energy and essence into your painting, actually regardless of whether it's clouds or other kinds of landscapes. My feeling about this, since it's not finished to continue, I have to add a few more junipers down here, because right now I have two bookends. And so I need to add a few more. And I want to gray this back here, and this is far too straight, so I've got straight, 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 so I want to interrupt that. Of course, I'll cover some more of the red, but in places, little dots here and there, there probably will be some red showing, because that creates a vibration and energy. I think I'll probably deepen this a little bit more, not as much as there underneath the clouds, but deeper through there.
Thank you.
I'm set.
Even though it felt like a quick draw, I did enjoy it.
It's beautiful. Beautiful job.